I want them to consume a disabled body and understand that this body is beautiful and the clothes that are being marketed can fit on a body like this.
Hey Ron, welcome to POVz. My day just got instantly better because you're here. You're a ray of sunshine.
Oh my God. Hi everyone. Hi.
Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you for having me. It's truly my pleasure and honor to be here with you today. I love this show so much and everything that it stands for and the content that you give to the world. So I'm just happy to even be here with you today to have, a kiki review about everything.
Thank you so much. And I feel that way about you. I know you have conversations like this very regularly. I mean, you have your own show. So it's an honor to have you here on mine. Thank you for coming.
Thank you. We're show sisters,
Absolutely. And I'm excited to dive into all of the things that make you who you are. That's what our show's really about. I hope that viewers walk away really understanding your unique POVs on the world and how you got here.
Absolutely.
So as we kind of unpack the suitcase, we always start out with a pretty interesting, thought-provoking question to get us started. So you ready?
Major. Okay, I'm totally ready.
Let's do it. So Aaron, my question for you is simply existing as we are brave?
Absolutely. I think that existence within itself, especially within the world that we live in, it can be really hard to exist. It feels hard to sometimes function and do the things that we would do in a way that we're most comfortable doing because of lifestyle changes, because of world changes, because of societal changes, And so I think that existing is a lot to even think about. But the fact that we're able to sit and do it is an act of bravery because the world sometimes is not kind, but it's up to us to be kind to each other. And a kind existence is the one that facilitates love. And I think that love makes existence feel better.
I love, no pun intended, that you said that. I think for me growing up, I felt so ashamed of who I was. I was the only Jewish kid in my school. And because of that, I just wanted to fit in. I shoved the pieces of myself that were different down in order to conform. And I think you're right. So much of today, when there are different identity groups that aren't wholly accepted in society, everywhere you go, it's hard to not feel like sometimes that we want to push those pieces of ourselves down.
For sure.
I'd love to go way back to the moments of your life when you started to realize that you were different from a lot of your peers. I know at 14...
I love this question so much.
Okay, go for it.
I feel like I live in my head a lot and I think about a lot of things. And I think that as I'm getting older, I'm understanding parts of my identity more than I ever have, especially dealing with my identity when I was a child. I did realize that I was very different from the folks around me when I was at a young age. When you're a child and when you're a child in the 2000s, I think especially, at that time, there wasn't really any language for expressing a gender identity that wasn't cis-normative or heteronormative. There wasn't language for that, and nobody could even fathom that. I had such a sisterhood and kinship with the girls surrounding me in my life, with the young girls surrounding me in my life. I had such a sisterhood and kinship with them. I noticed that I didn't really get along with the boys in my life. As I got older in that environment, I think that when you grow up, gender doesn't really matter. Like when you're a child, you don't actively think about gender. That's not a discussion being had. That's not something that you're thinking about. Society places you into the box and conforms of gender, what is expected of you and how you should be and how you should look, how you should talk, how you should act. It was around like 6th grade and 7th grade that I really hit a wall where I felt like as a child, I was really able to sort of just bond and connect with everybody because of the things that didn't set me apart from people. But now I truly felt set apart because I realized that I wasn't conforming to gender and I didn't know who I was or what I wanted when I was young. And then I had to find that. And I had no support system around me to find those things, to help me gather that, to help me get that together. It was at that point that I started feeling like, wow, I'm different. And then I had to realize, like, how is it that I'm different, though? And then I pushed myself forward with that.
What do you attribute that discovery to? Was it a conversation you had with yourself? Was it reflection? Was it representation? How did you find yourself?
I attribute me being able to find more comfort and peace in myself during that time to the internet. There was no language for transness as a child, but I was absolutely disabled. I faced a lot of ostracism from my peers around me. They didn't want to really hang out with someone that was disabled. That made me take to okay, so this physical space isn't working out. Where can I find a space that I can still grow and still connect with people and still have a place to have fun and learn and exist? And then I found, over time, I was on like AOL first. I was on like the little like chat rooms for video games. And then Instagram came out and Tumblr came out. As much as I love talking to people in a chat room, I was also a very visual person. Within finding that, I was able to sort of, through social media, be able to kind of like, I guess, even curate my identity through the people that I was talking to, through my inspirations. I surrounded myself with my love of video games and art and animation. And then over time, I found fashion. All of these things just helped me foster my own sense of identity and self-recognition.
That's amazing. The internet has also been my best friend from time to time. So that's oftentimes how we can facilitate those conversations when we can't have them directly with the people around us.
Right.
You are so confident in your identity. It's something that I admire so greatly because I know that it's something I'm still struggling with. Has there ever been a moment where you haven't loved every part of you?
My gosh, absolutely. I mean, it's kind of inevitable. The fact that it is in society a big deal to exist as a woman that uses a wheelchair, is Black, and who happens to be transgender, the fact that that is a big deal. I face a lot of, compounded ostracism and kind of like barriers still in my life due to me being the person that I am. Absolutely, 1,000 billion% I felt sometimes in my life pushing these things aside or away or making, minimizing myself and more watered down would be so much easier for me, Absolutely. But what I realized is like, what am I gonna get out of that? I've had to really learn that like, I'm not too much. I just am who I am, and I'm trying my best, and that speaks for something. I've learned to just feel more affirmed in the fact that, like, I'm gonna deal with my life the way that I deal with my life, and people are just gonna have to take me for what I am, because I can't do anything but that. And I want everyone else to feel that way too.
Thank you for sharing that.
Thank you for asking me that. Are you kidding me? That was an excellent question.
Thanks. It's something that I think a lot of young people, especially myself, are still struggling with, right? How do we be our fullest selves without feeling like we're too much or too loud or too this or too that? So hearing your story and hearing you share that is something that I know will resonate with so many people.
I hope people can find more pleasure and solace in themselves because it's all there if you tap into it.
You're such a successful model. You have done so many things in your career so far. You are using your voice and speaking up about all of the things you've experienced. Are there still moments where you feel like you're unable to foster your voice? And how do you get through some of those harder moments?
I am really blessed enough to have my platform where my platform helped me even build my career in the first place. I think that for me, within my career as a fashion model, I've had to conversate in order to stir ideas of potentially even using me for projects with clients, My representation and I are put in a place where, at least me personally, I feel like sometimes we're made to like almost negotiate my worth as like a talent due to me using a wheelchair, me being Black, and me being a transgender woman, In the conversations of diversity that has been had over the years of fashion and where we've seen progress be made, progress has absolutely been made. But for the disabled community and disabled perception in fashion, not so much. It is still very hard for a majority of the fashion industry to fully catch on and catch up to why it is important for disabled people to be in the conversation, and to not only to be in the conversation, but to be included in a way that is sufficient, not checking a box, not short, not really giving someone the short end of the stick. I think that people forget that disabled people are more common than they think in the first place. Like, a lot of people are disabled. A lot of people have disabled people in their lives. I still persist because I know that it's a conversation that needs to be had. It doesn't need to end at a conversation. It needs to go beyond the conversation. It needs to go into putting in the work to make things more inclusive.
In these conversations, a lot of people have preconceived notions about the disabled community or are casting labels upon you. And I've been thinking about labels recently.
Yes.
I watched you speak about this in a keynote speech you gave.
Yeah.
And I know you said that labels are not necessary. We should get rid of labels. And I wanted to ask you about that. Do you think that labels are productive and are necessary in society?
So when I did that keynote speech, I said that and I felt that. Now I just think that it varies. It varies on what you're trying to label. if you want to label to reclaim an identity or part of yourself that you feel is pushed aside, I don't think that's a label. I think that's reclaiming who you are and being proud of it. But that's considered in societal terms as a label. So if that's a label, then that's cool. Is it needed? Could we make a system where labels are, where labels could be devoid and we could all be okay existing side by side? Yes. Would it take work? Absolutely. Is that work, even deeper than we can even imagine? Yes. Labels are made because of society and what they've done in the first place. So you have to deconstruct that, and then that would take a lot of work. If we're gonna put in the work, let's put in the work, but that's not gonna be tomorrow or overnight.
I hear you.
So that's how I feel about that.
And are there any labels that you feel have been cast upon you that you don't identify with or you wish you weren't labeled as?
You know what? I used to really struggle with what I consider to be labels. I feel like especially when I started modeling, I used to see the press try to write about me and, sort of make sense of who I was and why I'm doing the things that I am. And they would go straight to being like transgender disabled model Aaron Rose Phillip. They would say those things versus calling me a talent versus calling me a model to put an emphasis on my identity. And that was something that I didn't really like at the time because I didn't like that they couldn't separate me from a part of myself that doesn't make up all of me. I realized that sometimes you can't control what people are going to do, and you have to be affirmed in yourself and know who you are. And what I know is that I am absolutely a model that is disabled, transgender, and Black, and is a woman. But I know that I'm just a girl. Like, I'm 21, like, I'm just a girl. And if they want to call me that in order to try to make sense of me, sure. But I know personally, and the people that know me know that I'm just a regular girl, and I just work hard as a model, and that's really it. So I find peace in that.
What would you say to younger Aaron going through that first moment at age 14? What message would you give her?
I would tell her, like, babe, you're not ready for like what's about to happen. Honestly, younger Aaron wouldn't even think to be on the show with you. You're interviewing her right now. Like, she wouldn't think about that. She doesn't even know what's gonna happen the next day. So I think younger Aaron would be gooped. And I would tell her, like, babe, just keep an eye out. Just go see what you're gonna go through. It'll be ugly and hard and tough, but like, tough it out, please, because listen, in like 2 years, it's gonna be so lit. Like, it's gonna be over. Like, I would really tell her that, and she'd be like, okay. Don't think that life is over. Don't feel like things are not gonna get better. And I know that's the most cliche thing in the whole wide world, and that everyone hears that all the time. But I really had to see it to believe it, because when I was younger and first coming out as myself, I really was kind of a lost person. I was a very lost kid. This 14-year-old Aaron, she was shy, insecure, and she didn't have much hope. Hope led me out to this point, and 14-year-old Aaron had hope, and that's why we're here today. So
I love your optimism, knowing that things can get better if you allow yourself.
No, that's really true though. Like, if you say positive things will happen. If you live positively, you're gonna live positively.
Do you believe in manifesting?
I certainly do. I believe in manifestation and prayer.
Well, I know I manifested this already, but I want to bring in some other perspectives from our TC community to take our conversation to another dimension. So keep an eye on your phone. We're going to send you some texts.
Okay.
You're going to read them and then share your POV.
Okay, swag.
Let's do it.
Don't get me wrong. I love my pronouns, but I feel like pronouns in general are being so overused these days. Can we all just exist without having to identify ourselves constantly? Oh my God. You know something? I don't think that pronouns are overused. I think that what's going on is that more people are finding out that they're queer. More people are finding out that they're LGBTQ. And I think that's a beautiful thing. Despite LGBTQ people still being a minority, there's a lot of us now. People want to understand themselves. And I think that identifying your own self is a way of understanding thyself. I think that's okay, really. What are your thoughts?
That's a good question. I mean, I'm cisgender. I feel like my role is to make people who are not cisgender feel comfortable in who they are.
Yes.
And if that means me stating my pronouns, I have no problem with that.
Right.
I do understand, growing up in Kansas, I come from a very conservative environment, that a lot of the rhetoric out there is that they are being overused. And I would argue that I think it's just because people aren't comfortable in making themselves uncomfortable.
Yes.
Right?
110%.
Like it takes, 0.2 seconds of your day to reiterate that your pronouns are she, her. But really, it's for helping someone else feel more comfortable. We live in such an individualistic society in America where we're so concerned about ourselves and our own comfort, when I think we should be prioritizing what could make someone else comfortable.
Absolutely. I also think, my love, that like pronouns are very personal.
Yeah.
Like they literally tell the story of who someone is. So it's just a matter of respect.
And what would you say to someone who maybe is ignorant and just doesn't understand that people's pronouns can change and evolve and it is such a personal thing? What would you want them to know?
Think about the person who it is that has the pronouns. They're most likely a beautiful person. So you respect beautiful people for who they are. And that's just all you have to do. That's all they're asking of you. Just your respect and your acknowledgement that they are who they are. It's just a matter of respect and loving that person and showing love.
So much of what you do is to increase representation.
Yes.
Because I know you talk a lot about how you didn't have that representation growing up.
Yes, and I really didn't. I really, really didn't.
If you had to guess what your gender identity would have looked like had you had a role model, how do you think that would have impacted your gender journey?
Well, I think that every child has a role model and it shapes them for who they are. I think that my identity was definitely fostered in womanhood, being around so many confident, powerful, beautiful, nurturing, self-affirmed women in my life who were helping me as a child to grow up. Just the women in my life really fostered me in a world of care and love. And I think that these women inspired me on a soul level to where I knew that my heart was with them.
I love that. Thank you for sharing that.
Oh, this is spicy. Oh my gosh. Okay.
What does it say?
It says modeling for high fashion companies is extremely classist in my opinion. That's not what we should be striving to do. High fashion is its name. It's high fashion. So it is fashion that was made in the image of and for selling to very wealthy, established people. That's what high fashion is made for. A lot of the people that created high fashion companies are in that lifestyle as well. I think that high fashion is changing where like it's becoming a more people first place anyways, where like I don't think that models are classist for modeling. I think that it's a career that is very legitimate work. The classism exists within the top of the industry.
I was recently talking to someone about how people who are models are sometimes put on display for other people to critique and consume. And in a lot of ways that perpetuates some harmful stereotypes because we're just watching people and creating this standard of beauty or what someone should be or look like.
Yes.
Do you ever feel as a model that you're being put on display for other people's consumption?
In a way, it's kind of what I want. I want them to understand, I want them to consume a disabled body and understand that this body is beautiful and the clothes that are being marketed can fit on a body like this and it can be worthy of putting out into the world. Do I think that talent deserves to be under a microscope and shamed for their bodies and ridiculed and sort of like overseen? No, not at all. That's very toxic. A modeling career is kind of like, it's kind of about being seen and being consumed for that part of yourself, but it's considered like shallow, but then it's less shallow when people are offered into that equation of what can a body look like? What am I consuming? Why am I consuming this? If that conversation opens to more types of people, it's better.
And that's what increases representation.
Yes. Ooh, okay. Not everything has to be political, bestie. Do people just forget that we are more than our own beliefs and that we can easily separate the personal from the political? We need to separate the two as much as possible. Your politics are telling of who you are on a personal level a lot of the time, though. Like, politics contain things that have to do with people. So a viewpoint can change how a person is able to live and how they're able to navigate their lives. I don't know if I agree with that because I do think that politics has a lot to do with a person's viewpoint as to what they want for other people, not just themselves. And I think that people forget how much politics has to do with not with more than one person. And I think that's why sometimes people are able to get so kind of into that because they don't realize that it's not just affecting you, it's affecting other people too.
I love what you said, that politics affect people. And
It
therefore,
does.
it's hard to separate the two.
Cancel the word disabled. It gives the impression that people with disabilities can't do anything, when in fact they can do pretty much anything and everything. Petition to replace disabled with differently abled, period. In my life, I've absolutely had back and forth with my own family about, disabled as a term versus differently abled or people with disabilities. Words like differently abled and people with disabilities are used for person first language they kind of are wanting to center the person first versus this facet of their identity in referring to them. But I think that what people don't understand about that is the fact that there is nothing wrong with being disabled. Like there's nothing wrong about being disabled. Disabled itself is not an oppressive term unless you think about it that way. Whoever said disabled was a slur is something oppressive within itself. I think that people think that there's something wrong with that word, that word is made to entail that disabled people are less than or lesser, but that's only if that's your personal perspective. I think that a lot of disabled people agree that disabled itself is not a inherently negative or bad term, and that there's not really a discomfort in being referred to that way.
So disagree. You would not cancel the word.
I wouldn't
disabled.
cancel it.
I've never thought of it that way.
I would let
you.
people use differently abled if they want to, though, or people with disabilities if they want to, but cancel it overall, no.
Yeah, it's an interesting perspective. I think for people who don't have experiences being differently abled may feel uncomfortable talking about it.
Right.
So maybe they've placed some sort of emphasis on the word disabled. I know I've at times even felt uncomfortable saying disabled because I don't want to offend someone. But like you said, why is disabled a derogatory term? There's so many amazing people who are reclaiming
Who
it.
are disabled. There's so many beautiful people in the world that are disabled and who are living their lives as disabled people. And like, it's nothing that contains shame or something bad.
Yeah,
You know?
totally. Thank you for sharing that perspective.
Aaron, drop a hot take. Okay, a hot take. So just my random opinion on anything that I feel very
Anything.
strongly about.
Anything controversial.
Trans women in a dating context are normally like horrifically mistreated by the people that pursue us. That disdain, that inability to understand trans women is exclusive to us.
Do you think trans men struggle with dating as well?
Oh, absolutely. But do I think that trans women horrifically struggle? Yeah. My personal experience as a doll and observing even my own friends going through their relationships and their lives, like, trans women have it really ugly, and like, we're not sure why.
I know you said you don't really know where it comes from,
Yeah.
but what do you think the solution is?
Treat people the way you want to be treated. I think that, trans people often treat people the way they want to be treated, and they don't really get that back. And I think that the world does not give that back, probably for the myriad of reasons as to why the world would not love trans women. But I just feel like it could change if you just treat people the way you want to be treated.
Takes me back to like the earliest days of like lower school or middle school where that was the golden rule we were taught, and we would say it. I don't know if you experienced this, but they made us like say it out loud and repeat it and ingrain it. And I think it's more relevant than ever, right?
I don't think people really in the world in general treat people the way they want to be treated. Just in general. I think that's something I realized. Like, it's sad because then you grow up and you're like, oh my God, but that's not the truth, is it? In the books, it's not.
Maybe that's your hot take.
Oh, actually, that is my hot take. People do not treat other people the way they want to be treated, and it's one of the worst things about the world. That's my hot take. That's my official hot take.
I feel that. And I feel like the only way to start building a world where everyone can be exactly as they are is when we start to apply that, right? We have to be able to treat people the way we want to be treated.
Yes, because think about who you are individually as a person. You want respect, you want love, you want companionship, you want to feel desire, you want to feel wanted, you want to feel like you're worthy, you want to feel intelligent, you want to feel empowered. So how do you want to feel these types of ways? And you can't even give it back to the people around you. That's not realistic, that's not nice, that's not cool. And it's so much more common than it should be for people to operate in this manner. And that's why the world is like not really the happiest place it could be.
Well, we need more of you in it. I hope that everyone hears
We need
this
more of you in the world.
conversation. Hey, Ron. I feel like
We do,
we were
though.
meant to meet, and I'm just so grateful that you were willing to have this conversation with me. I think so much of what you're doing now really is blazing a trail. Like you really are
literally so much.
increasing representation on so many levels just by being the amazing person you are.
Thank you.
So before
thank
you go, you are a Gen Z powerhouse. For any young person out there listening to this, if you had one message for our entire generation that could be heard through a megaphone right now, what would it be?
Live mindfully and live with love.
I love it. We'll put on a t-shirt. Where does that come from? Why did that come to mind?
I feel like we're in a world right now where you have to be kind of mindful. And I think that people forget to be mindful So I'm not gonna tell people what they should or should not do, but for the sake of the people around them, be mindful of your actions and what you choose to do. Be mindful of yourself. Be mindful of the way that you live your life. Be mindful of the fact that you have power over your life. You have power over what happens. You have more power than you think. You hold the power. So live mindfully and live with love.
If I know one thing in this world, it's that we need a little more love.
We need a little more love in the world always. There's never enough.
So Aaron, thank you so much for
Thank
being on
you
POVz.
so much.
I feel
Thank
so lucky
you.
to have met you today.
I feel so grateful to have met you.
And I hope
feel so
this-
grateful for this conversation.
And I hope this is our first conversation of many.
Very much so.
Can I give you a hug?
Yes, you can. Thank you.
That was amazing.
Thank you for having me, my love. It was really my pleasure.
Do you feel like there's anything else on your mind or your heart that we didn't talk about?
I just want to send hugs and kisses to the viewers and have a lovely day. Mwah.
Oh my god.
Yes,
You're the best. Well, before you go, can we take a selfie?
we can.